I've been analysing the groups and the individuals' conceptions of leadership. So I've been asking myself, how do you guys put your idea of leadership together? And there's a lot of different people I could have turned to for an approach to take on this. I've opted for these two characters here. This is Jim Kouzes and Barry Posner. And in the 1980s, they started work on this by creating an inventory of leadership practices based around what we think of as 5 dimensions. Or so it's like this. If you found something that everybody says, oh, there was real leadership there. If you probe people, if you ask questions about those things, say, what do you mean leadership? If you dig into that enough, inevitably you wind up talking about 5 common themes. And those 5 common themes are these: model the way, inspire shared vision, challenge the process, enable others to act, and encourage the heart. Now, you don't have to buy into the language wholeheartedly. What I like about this is the pragmatic value of there being 5 things. Human beings are good at handling chunks of stuff in a range of between 5 and 9 items. 5 items is the lowest level of that. Any less and we'd think it was unduly simplistic, any more than 9 and we wouldn't be able to cope. So there's the 5 things that we are thinking of leadership in terms of. And when they asked their questions, they used an inventory. I think they have a 30-item inventory. We had less than that. We had 3 lots of 15 items that we asked you to rate. And we forced you to rate them, so you couldn't rate everything equally highly, forced you to differentially rate them. And that was a deliberate strategy in order to test the consistency of your thinking around this stuff, because if there's a lot of inconsistency, maybe the model just doesn't work in your case. It actually turns out that everybody has a very high level of consistency, and that's not surprising. So what we did was we asked you to rate the statements for leadership, and we also asked your line manager. So if we look over here, on the first column, you are in the first column there. Those are your scores for leadership against each statement. And your line manager is in the second column there. And what we've got is we've added up, yeah? So we've totaled the scores. So there's your line manager and you on modelling. And for this person, there's no real significant difference. 1 point difference is not huge. The biggest difference you could have had would have been if one of the two had said 1 all the way down, and so given a total score of 3 for modelling, and the other had said 5 all the way down and given a total score of 15. So there would have been a difference of 12 places. So you can see that 1 place difference isn't a big difference. If there was a 12-place difference, it would be extraordinary, because we'd have 2 people with very, very fixed ideas about the value of modelling, and they would be very fixed and in completely the opposite directions. It never happens, really. So we've got several instances where this person and their line manager seem to be in reasonably close proximity to one another. So I'm just going to redo that one. That's a bit messy, wasn't it? There we are. You can see that when it comes to enabling, inspiring and modelling, there's not a huge difference. But if we look at here, challenge, the individual involved sees challenge as more important than their line manager does. And then if we look again at encourage, we can see there's another difference there. It's the other way around. So it's almost like these 2 people are pulling in the opposite direction when it comes to challenge and encourage in terms of leadership. They agree around the other things, but they disagree around the values of challenge and encourage. And that's not to say that one is right and the other is wrong. It's just a difference in approach and conception. If you're aware of it, you can actually turn it into a strength as a team. If you're not aware of it, it's likely to cause a problem. And it could happen like this. Let's say that the line manager, who regards encouraging as very, very leadership value, high value leadership activity, has an issue with a group of people and says to this person who we're looking at their scores, says to them, I need you to get into that team and I need you to provide some leadership around whatever it is. So they go in there and they issue a bunch of challenges. The line manager was expecting the person to go in and be encouraging, and they go in with a lot of challenge. And that's going to cause problems, isn't it? There's going to be difficulties. There's going to be enough of it. There's going to be conflict between this individual who the line manager has to solve a problem and the line manager who's now got, in their eyes, a bigger problem to solve. So you can see that not knowing about the differences in terms of your thinking around leadership could be a source of anxiety and conflict, and that's to be avoided. So making ourselves conscious of that is what this exercise is about. Now, if you don't like it in terms of numbers, and quite frankly, why should you particularly like numbers, I did also do the whole exercise using a graph. So the bar chart for the same data for that individual looks like this. And this is quite nice. It helps us to see what's going on. So if you look here, you can not only can you see the differences, but you can also see the absolute parities as well. This person, these two people are very, very closely pegged around these first two sets of values. And there's not a big difference here in terms of enable. They share more than they differ, and that's important. But where they differ, they need to know and they need to address that difference. They need to be conscious of it when they're planning deployment. Because there's no point in planning a deployment on the understanding that you're going to go and do one thing when I actually want you to do another. So that's what the graph is supposed to be showing us. I hope it's some use to you. Right, let's move on to the next topic area. So besides these conceptions of leadership, we also asked you to assess yourself in terms of your skills. Now the program is designed to support and facilitate 33 separate skill areas. And I tried graphing them, but it didn't work. So what I've gone for instead, I'm just going to zoom in a little bit. What I've gone for instead is some little flags, really, to indicate where I think you need to draw your attention. So again, you're in pole position. You are in your first column here. So your assessment of yourself, oh, hang on. Your assessment of yourself is there. Your line manager's assessment is in the next column there. And wherever there's a small difference or no difference between you, where there's no difference between you, I've given you a green flag. So look, there's a no difference bar there. Little green blob, no difference. So for these two people, challenge individuals and groups about values. Remember, this person thinks challenge is an important leadership activity. The line manager knows that they're good at challenge, and they know they're good at challenge, and that's a strength, isn't it? We've got a degree of consistency in our thinking. So that value difference is less likely to cause a problem, provided the manager knows that challenge isn't what they like, isn't what they do. They draw on this person to do their challenge for them. That's good. The critical thing isn't so much where there's strong agreement, I think. The critical thing is going to be where there's big disagreements, and look, here it is. This person has a 3-point difference. I mean, that's almost as big as you can get because the top score was 5 and the bottom score was 1. But it's highly unlikely that people will get to that level of difference. But there is this 3-point difference for these two people around this person's capacity to describe what diversity means. So the individual doesn't have a lot of confidence in their ability to describe diversity, but their line manager has a lot of it. They think they're effective. 4 was the effective. So there's there's something those two people need to focus on. And wherever you've got a red blob in your list, like that one there, that's where you've got a difference of 2 or more places. I think that's where you need to have a conversation. But let's imagine the situation where you had no differences at all. It was all green blobs. It's all good, don't need to discuss it. I think you still need to focus on that because the chances of that being the case are pretty slim. It suggests that you and your line manager may be way too close in your thinking about your skills. There may be a degree of complacency. And that needs addressing too. And if there's a huge level of difference, it might not be as important as it suggests. It may be that your line manager just, didn't get the task, or maybe you didn't get the task and did it in too much of a hurry or something. So don't take the coloured blobs as like the absolute on all of this. So we're going to have a look at the last bit of this now, and that's to do with the way in which, I'm just going to clean the screen up there, it's a bit of a mess, isn't it? That's to do with the way in which we think about our skills in general terms. So here you can see that I've got the list of tags that we used. So I asked you to think about how expert you were, and that was a mistake, I think. I don't think social workers, and a lot of people, not just social workers, I don't think a lot of people think of themselves in expertise. When I started out, I was just using numbers, and I realised that not everybody thinks in terms of numbers, so I needed descriptors. I should have said effective and very effective, or highly effective. I shouldn't have said expert, because that suggests nowhere else to go, and I think that was the problem there. But even so, there is an issue, because even though hardly anybody participating in the programme thought of themselves as being an expert, their line managers did, I don't know why that happened, let's just put that back where it was. Their line managers did think of them as experts occasionally. So if you think about here, this particular instance here, look, there's one skill where this person thinks, the line manager thinks they're expert. Now, if that happened more than once, that would be a real issue, wouldn't it? Because that suggests that this person either has a confidence issue or their line manager is unreliable in their assessments of competence. Now, one of those two things is true, and if either of them are true, it's a problem. Because if you're not confident of stuff you're good at, you're not going to do it as quick as you could. You're not going to do it as effectively as you could. And if your line manager overestimates your competence, you're going to be refused, or not refused, you're not going to have the same development opportunities, and you're going to experience their demands as stressful because they think, oh yeah, he can handle this, and actually he can't, or she can't, or whatever. So use the distribution to help you out with that. And here, look at this again, here we go. So we're going to have a quick look down here. This person thinks of themselves as being more developmental than effective, and their line manager thinks of that person as being way more effective than in need of development. And that's very, very important, isn't it? Because that means that here, 17 times the line manager says that they're effective, and 9 times they say themselves. 33 items, so 50% of the time the line manager sees them as effective, 9 times more like a quarter. That's quite a difference. That's a significant feature of this profile, and it's a conversation that person needs to have with their line manager. Right, I'm hoping that has set the tone and you can see how we might use this data. If you've got any questions about your individual one, you want to talk it through with somebody, email me. We could do it over the phone. We could meet face to face. We'll sort that out. If you wanted to talk about, or if you wanted to think some more about the overall approach, Cousins and Posner, or we call this whole thing psychometry, the measurement of individual potential, then I'm happy to point you in the direction of resources and support you with that kind of inquiry as well. I'm going to circulate this to everybody, and along with everybody's individual profiles, so that you can see what your line manager and you are saying about one another. And if you've got any questions, please get in touch. Hopefully also it'll help you prepare for the next session that you've got in a couple of weeks' time, is it next week actually, on Belbin. Belbin is another kind of psychometry doing a very similar kind of task. Thank you very much for your time, and I look forward to hearing from you soon.